Hello, malt mates. Welcome to the Whisky Bothy. I am Ralphie, your host, and I review whisky and quality spirits. And this is review 1086 or 1087. I made a note of which review it was 10 minutes ago. Then I got distracted when I tripped over one of my cats, and now I can't remember. But the show goes on, so welcome. This is an extra content, extra opinion, extra perspectives, and extra input that whisky drinkers need to be aware of. And my topic is luxury brands, because there's been a scandal recently. It's not featured in legacy media for a simple reason that they're protecting their advertising revenue as best they can. Well, what's left of it. And so they would never blow the whistle. So it's been in social media that the main narrative has been appearing. And it appears that Rolex, the luxury Swiss watch brand, have got themselves into hot water when Chinese factories allegedly disclosed that many of the components, if not practically all of the components that were used for the composition of a Rolex watch were not made in Switzerland, but were in fact made in China. And then the near completed item was then shipped to Switzerland, where it was completed. Whatever completed means, which meant that they could use the moniker and state on the product that it was made in Switzerland. Now, when you look at the prices of a Rolex watch, which are absurdly and stupidly high, you can understand why avid collectors and investors are really pissed off. Hello, fella. Do you want to come and sit in my lap here, mate? You want to come? It's Billy Bundle. Here he is. Oh, my big tomcat. He loves me in his own way. He doesn't tell me he loves me. He just pesters me for treats and then purrs when he gets them. And I have to say, I am putty in his paws, because as an obedient member of his staff, I reward him for bad behaviour. I mean, I shouldn't be giving him a treat, and there's his little brother in now. But, you know, it is what it is, and I do not apologise for it. So let's get on with this. Extras. Rolex, luxury watchmakers. The demand for their products has fallen off a cliff. Notable celebrities have sued Rolex for false descriptions and other upset reasons, and have actually been getting paid through the courts substantial compensation. It just doesn't affect Rolex, by the way. It affects virtually the whole fashion industry, where increasingly the actual initial and substantial fabrication of luxury goods has taken place in China, and then it has been exported near complete to other countries, mainly in Europe, where they are finished within the fashion industry and collectibles industry, and then sold on to the customers at substantial profits. In fact, I'll pick another word: absurdly high profits. Now, I'd like to add that, in my opinion, people who invest in luxury brands for the sake of it are mugs and suckers, and are setting themselves up to be ripped off. But there again, I've got to take a reality check here, because this has become dangerously close to the home of Scotch whisky industry, with the recent BBC expose of whisky cask, Scotch whisky cask investment shenanigans, which allegedly mounts to fraud. Right? Everything seemed tickety-boo and just rosy-cosy for the luxury industries and prestige industries with big marks and big names round about pandemic lockdown in 2020. But here we are 5 years later and the entire landscape is changing. The wine industry is experiencing a major, devastating downturn in demand for wine. The Scotch whisky industry is still in denial that there has been a catastrophic decline in the sale of whiskies compared to several years ago. And that in fact, we're seeing people who bought investment grade whiskies desperately trying to offload them at auctions and accepting knockdown prices nowhere near what they expected as the investment grade value of the whiskies they originally bought. The car industry, the luxury car market, second-hand car market, is a disaster. Nobody wants Range Rovers. Nobody wants Lamborghinis. Nobody wants prestige cars. Maserati, my goodness, the second-hand market value for a Maserati now is just appalling. And it's not just that, gemstones. The jewellery market is experiencing a collapse in demand for traditional diamonds because you can now get factory-produced diamonds and other glittery stones which frankly are superior. And this is global. Nothing happens in one single country anymore. That's not the world we live in. So what does this mean for Scotch whisky? I mean, there's the fine art market, particularly the contemporary fine art market, which is probably one of the most obviously heavily manipulated and, in some people's opinion, fraudulent market out there, which just hoovers up the suckers left, right and centre. Because one of the failings of many humans is their absurd self-belief, pretentious sense of entitlement and demand for exclusivity. I have to share this. You know, a lot of the people I know with real money, you could walk past them in the street and you wouldn't even notice. Scuffy shoes, old clothes, no bling, no jewellery, no designer sunglasses, none of that. That's all now becoming passé. The real bling now is for people who have, for example, meteorite collections, because the only way you can have a successful meteorite collection, stamp collection, coin collection, book collection, is if you know your stuff and know where to get the genuine goods. And your investments, well, it's either property or the stock market. End of. And if it's in the stock market, you do it yourself, folks. You do not trust. You cannot trust big companies to handle this for you, according to a financial advisor that I know who recommends to his clients that they diversify their risk by taking more direct control over their own investments, because technology now enables this to happen. He's a busy man because he's honest. And people know he's honest. The world is changing fast, and my conclusion is simple. I'm looking at the Scotch whisky industry and I can see it's still to wake up to the new world that's around us now. Because this new world is going to bed in over the next few years, and tough times are going to become tougher. You and I, malt mates, we'll be fine because we know where to source good value, good quality whisky, because we are informed, like the stamp collectors, the coin collectors, the meteorite hunters. We've done our groundwork. We've done this apprenticeship in knowing the product before we jump in and spend our money. And when we do spend our money, we're looking for real-time value, not just some disingenuous and frankly repetitive, boring narrative which is presented by people in a marketing department who you really wouldn't want to know in real life. I mean, these are really not particularly pleasant people. And I know I'm generalising, but I have to generalise. The industry doesn't care about the consumers. So we as customers have to care about ourselves. We don't just look at whiskey, we look at everything. What's the cost of things? And what do you get for the cost? And we have our boundaries. And this is going to be key for 2026 next year, is where our boundaries are at, what we're prepared to pay, and what we need to get in return without second guessing the quality and risking being disappointed. Because a disappointed customer is a customer that walks away and never looks back. And the Scotch whisky industry doesn't need that, and it certainly doesn't want it. But it has to act the part. It is not good at the moment when you see new releases of whisky coming from a company that are super inflated, overpriced, and yet at the same time, other brands within the same portfolio are being discounted up to 50%. Very mixed messages. And this takes us full circle here. Because when the Chinese manufacturers of Rolex parts or Gucci handbag parts or any other luxury item parts have gone public and disclosed that they are in fact making and can make the complete bag to the highest quality that you'd expect from a designer brand, a luxury brand, and can do it at a fraction of the price, people start to listen. And I wonder how long it is before we see Chinese whisky doing exactly the same thing. The saving grace for Scotch whisky, and this is so important, I do need to mention it, is that Scotch whisky is 100% manufactured, distilled, matured and bottled in Scotland. But I'm talking about malt whisky, not blended whisky. Blended whisky can be bottled in other countries. Please be aware of that. It's custom and practice. It's the wibbly-wobbly rules and regulations. It's just the way it is. But the product, when we buy it, if it's Scotch whisky or if it's rum, we need to know absolutely that this is a product made under certain terms and conditions, to certain standards and certain parameters that are guaranteed and do not become manipulated. And again, I mention this, that I don't understand why people allow Japanese whisky to have such a high reputation when in fact it is perfectly legal and perfectly normal in Japan for Scotch whisky to be imported, blended into Japanese whisky, and then it is bottled and sold as Japanese whisky. I call that fake. I call that insincere and disingenuous. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but I'm saying they should be transparent and honest about it. And that is one reason why you find it's exceedingly rare that I review any Japanese whiskies on my channel these days. And to be honest, many of them I don't even rate particularly, especially in relation to the price. I hope you found this interesting, engaging, and of course, entertaining. I'm Ralphie, here in the Bothy, sharing the knowledge, opinion, perspective. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and I know that some people will be offended. Well, so sad, too bad, never mind, moving on. There's a lot worse things to offend people these days than simply someone commenting on whisky. That's all I have to say.